Imagine you are carrying a heavy backpack that you never take off. Inside are your expectations, your disappointments, your comparisons with others, and your constant fears of not being enough. Day after day, you keep adding more weight until you forget what it feels like to walk freely. This invisible load is what most of us are carrying through life, and it is the reason we often feel restless even when everything seems fine on the surface. Here is the hook. What if the freedom you have been searching for is not in adding more, achieving more, or becoming more, but in letting go of what you never needed to carry in the first place? In the fast-moving culture of the West, we are taught that life is about accumulation. More money, more success, more experiences, more recognition. Social media only sharpens this pressure, showing us endless highlight reels of other people's lives, convincing us that we are always behind. You might wake up to a good cup of coffee or enjoy a laugh with a friend, but within seconds your mind tells you it is not enough. The race continues. This is not a new problem. Centuries ago, the Buddha described the same cycle of craving and dissatisfaction. He observed that human beings chase what they want and run from what they fear, yet never find lasting peace. Desire, he said, is like trying to lick honey from the edge of a knife. Sweet for a moment, but ultimately painful. The same cycle repeats whether you are chasing wealth, approval, or even spiritual achievements. Think about how this shows up in modern life. A young professional believes happiness will arrive once they land the promotion. When that day comes, relief lasts only briefly before the next goal takes over. A student believes peace will come after graduation, only to discover that new responsibilities bring new anxieties. Even in the world of wellness, meditation or yoga can become just another competition, another badge to display rather than a practice of presence. The finish line always moves, but here is where Zen wisdom enters like a quiet breeze through an open window. The mistake is not in wanting a good life. The mistake is believing you are incomplete until you reach the next destination. Zen teaches that the fullness you long for has never been missing. It is here in this breath, in this moment, waiting for you to notice. The problem is not the world outside. The problem is the fog of incompleteness inside our minds. This journey is not about rejecting your goals or your ambitions. It is about shifting the way you carry them. You do not need to abandon your dreams to feel free. You only need to loosen your grip on the belief that happiness lies somewhere else in a future that never arrives. The art of letting go is not losing. It is finally discovering that the backpack was never locked to your shoulders. You can set it down here and now and take your first light step into freedom. The fog of incompleteness in modern life. Walk into any busy city street and you can feel it in the air. The rush of cars, the glow of billboards, the constant pull of phones in people's hands. Beneath the noise and movement lies a quieter truth. Most of us are walking through life, wrapped in a fog of incompleteness. It is a fog so subtle we rarely notice it, yet it colors every decision, every ambition, every emotion. It convinces us that something is always missing, that happiness is always one step away, and that peace is never fully possible in this moment. Think about the last time you felt content. Maybe it was a sunny afternoon in the park, maybe a dinner with friends, maybe a quiet moment at home with a book. For a brief period you felt complete. Then, almost without warning, a thought slipped in. You remembered an unfinished task at work. You compared your life to someone else's on social media. You worried about money or about the future. The moment shattered, replaced by the nagging sense that whatever you have is not enough. This is the fog of incompleteness. It creeps in even during our happiest experiences, whispering that joy is fragile and conditional. In the modern West, this fog has grown thicker than ever. Our culture is built on progress, achievement, and competition. From childhood, we are taught to measure ourselves against standards that are always moving. In school, we learn that good grades are the key to success, but when we achieve them, the bar moves higher. In our careers, we are told that a certain title or salary will bring fulfillment, yet once we arrive, the satisfaction fades quickly. Social media magnifies the effect. With a single swipe, we can compare our ordinary day with someone else's carefully curated highlight reel. Their vacations, their houses, their smiling families remind us of what we lack, even if we were content before the fog rolls back in. The Buddha described this very cycle 2,500 years ago. He called it dukkha, often translated as suffering, but more accurately understood as a deep sense of restlessness or dissatisfaction. He noticed that human beings live in a constant state of reaching and resisting, grasping what they want and pushing away what they fear. Neither action brings lasting peace. The hunger for more is never satisfied because desire itself is bottomless. This teaching is easy to understand, but hard to accept. Our society is built on the belief that fulfillment lies in acquisition. More possessions, more recognition, more love, more experiences. We convince ourselves that the next purchase, the next milestone, the next relationship will finally make us whole. Yet when we arrive, the satisfaction evaporates almost instantly. The fog of incompleteness is waiting at the finish line. A striking example of this can be seen in the lives of entrepreneurs in the modern startup culture. Many begin their journey with the dream of building something meaningful. They work day and night, convinced that happiness will come once they secure their first round of funding. When that milestone arrives, relief lasts only a moment before the next target appears. Now it is not about funding, but about growth. Then it is about reaching the next valuation. Then about taking the company public. Each step forward only pushes the horizon farther away. Even the most successful entrepreneurs often confess to feeling restless and unsatisfied, as though they are still chasing something they cannot name. The fog of incompleteness clings to them despite their achievements. But this cycle is not limited to the ambitious. It touches every corner of life. The young professional believes they will finally feel complete when they move into their own apartment. The parent imagines peace will come when the children are grown. The retiree believes freedom will arrive once their health stabilizes or their finances feel secure. In each case, the fog whispers that contentment is always just beyond reach, never here, never now. The problem is not desire itself. Desire can motivate us to grow, to learn, to create. The problem is our relationship to desire. We treat it as a promise of lasting happiness rather than what it truly is, a temporary spark that fades as soon as it is met. The Buddha compared it to trying to quench thirst by drinking salt water. For a moment, the sensation feels like relief, but soon the thirst returns stronger than before. The cycle deepens and the fog grows thicker. This fog is not only personal but cultural. In the West, we celebrate what some scholars call the culture of becoming. We are praised for what we might achieve rather than for what we already are. We rarely ask children who they are, but constantly ask what they want to become. Adults are valued for their potential, their next project, their next accomplishment, rather than their present being. This relentless forward focus makes it nearly impossible to rest in the moment. We are always becoming, never simply being. The consequences are profound. Anxiety disorders and depression are at record highs in Europe, America, and Canada. Many people are not lacking in material comfort. They have homes, jobs, and even supportive relationships. Yet they feel a persistent sense of emptiness, as though life is slipping through their fingers. Psychologists often frame this as a mental health crisis, but from a Buddhist perspective, it is also a spiritual crisis. It is the fog of incompleteness choking our vision. There is an old Zen story about a man running from a tiger. He comes to the edge of a cliff and clings to a vine to avoid falling. Above him, the tiger waits. Below him, another tiger circles. As he dangles, two mice begin gnawing at the vine. In that moment, he sees a strawberry growing on the cliff. He plucks it and tastes its sweetness. This story is not about ignoring danger. It is about realizing that life is never free of problems. Yet within each moment, there is something complete, something whole. The fog tells us to wait until the tigers are gone before we can enjoy the strawberry. Zen teaches us that the strawberry is only ever available now. In modern terms, the fog tells us to wait until the inbox is clear, until the debts are paid, until the body looks a certain way, until the relationship is perfect. Only then will we deserve rest and happiness. But if we keep waiting, we will never taste the strawberry. Life will pass while we plan to begin living later. The fog wins when we postpone our own presence. Consider the impact of digital distraction. Studies show that people in North America check their phones more than 100 times a day, often without awareness. Each glance fragments attention, pulling us away from the present into a fog of alerts, comparisons, and unfinished tasks. The moment we might have enjoyed is consumed by the restless urge to check again. We live in a constant state of partial presence, never fully here, never fully there. The fog thrives in this environment, feeding on our divided attention. Yet there are glimpses of another way. Think about times when the fog lifts unexpectedly. Maybe while listening to a favorite song, maybe while holding a child, maybe while watching snow fall in silence. In those moments, nothing is missing. You are not thinking about tomorrow or comparing yourself to anyone else. You are simply present. The strawberry is in your hand. The backpack is on the ground. These flashes of completeness reveal a truth often hidden. You do not need to earn your wholeness. It is already here. Zen practice invites us to cultivate this awareness deliberately rather than waiting for it to arrive by chance. It is not about escaping the modern world or rejecting ambition. It is about recognizing the fog for what it is, a mental habit, not a permanent reality. When you learn to notice it, you can step through it. The moment you stop believing the whisper that says you are not enough, the fog begins to thin. The challenge is that the fog disguises itself as motivation. It tells you that restlessness is proof of your drive, that discontent is evidence of ambition. In truth, the most powerful people are not those driven by a sense of lack, but those who act from a sense of completeness. Their energy does not come from fear, but from presence. When you no longer need the next achievement to feel whole, you can pursue it with freedom rather than desperation. The fog of incompleteness will not disappear overnight. It is woven into the fabric of our culture and our minds. But every time you pause, breathe, and taste the strawberry of the present moment, you weaken its grip. Every time you resist the urge to compare, you lift a corner of the fog. Over time, the world becomes clearer, brighter, more alive. Modern life will always present challenges, but the teachings of Zen remind us that the deepest freedom does not lie in perfect conditions. It lies in recognizing that the conditions for peace are already present. The fog is only a story. Beneath it, the landscape of your life is already whole. The endless chase for happiness. Once you begin to see the fog of incompleteness, it becomes clear how it pushes us into an endless chase. Life starts to look like a track where the finish line keeps moving forward, no matter how fast we run. The promise is always the same. Just a little more money, just a little more recognition, just a little more progress. Then happiness will arrive. But the moment we get there, the line shifts, the prize fades, and the chase begins again. This is one of the most exhausting patterns of the modern world. We are trained to think of happiness as a destination, something we must reach by constant striving. Schools tell children that their value lies in the grades they achieve. Workplaces measure worth by promotions, bonuses, and productivity. Even in personal life, relationships are often judged by milestones, anniversaries, or social media posts, rather than by the quiet presence of two people together. We rarely allow ourselves to feel complete where we are. The Buddha warned about this tendency long before social media, long before capitalism, long before modern psychology. He noticed that human beings cling to the illusion that the next thing will bring satisfaction. We imagine that the desire itself is a guide pointing toward peace. But in truth, desire is like a mirage in the desert. We run toward it believing it is water, but when we arrive, the thirst remains. The pattern repeats endlessly, leaving us exhausted but no closer to quenching our true thirst. Consider the modern professional who sets out to build a career. At first, the goal is simple, a stable job. Once that is achieved, the goal shifts to a higher salary. With more money comes the dream of a bigger house or a new car. Soon the attention turns to recognition, to being admired or envied. Each time the professional reaches one goal, the sense of achievement fades quickly. The satisfaction is as temporary as the glow of a sunset. No matter how many times the goal is met, the mind quickly resets the horizon. This is not a sign of personal failure. It is simply the nature of desire itself. In startup culture, this chase takes on an almost mythic quality. Founders believe happiness will come once they raise their first million in venture capital. When that happens, they look to the next stage, the next valuation, the next round of applause. Eventually, the dream becomes taking the company public. Yet, even those who succeed often report a deep sense of emptiness afterward. They sacrificed health, relationships, and peace of mind, chasing an idea of fulfillment that vanished the moment they touched it. The fog of incompleteness reshaped itself into the next goal. The chase continued, but the promised peace never arrived. This cycle is not limited to wealth or career. It shows up in personal life as well. A teenager imagines that happiness will come when they are finally accepted into their dream college. A graduate believes contentment will appear once they find the right partner. A couple imagines that peace will begin once they buy their first home. Later, they convince themselves it will come after the children grow up or after retirement begins. At each stage, happiness is pushed into the future, always just out of reach. Even spirituality can become another form of chasing. Many people approach meditation, prayer, or yoga as if they are tools to achieve some perfect state. They imagine that with enough practice, they will enter a permanent zone of bliss. When the mind wanders or the body aches, they feel like failures. This is what some teachers call the trap of spiritual materialism. We turn even the search for peace into another project of becoming another trophy, to display another finish line to cross. In doing so, we miss the very essence of practice, which is not about achieving a state, but about being present with what already island. The irony is that the more we chase happiness, the more it slips away. Imagine trying to catch your own shadow. The harder you run, the faster it moves. The only way to stop chasing is to pause and notice that happiness was never separate from you. It was not waiting at the end of the race. It was here all along, hidden by the illusion of a finish line. Zen offers a different approach. Instead of running after happiness, it invites us to notice the completeness of this very moment. The old saying captures it well: before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. Nothing external changes, yet the quality of awareness transforms everything. The ordinary becomes extraordinary because it is no longer filtered through the restless chase. A bowl of rice, a sip of tea, a quiet walk become sources of profound peace once the fog of incompleteness dissolves. In the modern world, however, this lesson can feel almost impossible to accept. Our entire economy is built on convincing people that happiness lies in the next purchase. Advertisements whisper that you will feel complete once you own the newest phone, drive the latest car, or wear the right brand. Social media amplifies the message by rewarding images of achievement and beauty. The result is a culture that worships becoming while neglecting being. It is not surprising that so many feel burned out and anxious. We are running on a treadmill that never stops chasing, a prize that never arrives. Psychologists have studied this phenomenon under the name hedonic adaptation. It refers to the way human beings quickly return to a baseline of contentment regardless of what happens. A new house, a new relationship, or a new job may lift happiness for a short period, but soon the novelty fades. We adapt and the craving begins again. This research confirms what the Buddha taught long ago. External gains cannot deliver lasting peace because the restless nature of desire itself prevents it. So how do we step out of the chase? The first step is recognition. You cannot free yourself from a cycle you do not see. When you notice the pattern of waiting for the next thing to bring peace, pause and reflect. Ask yourself, is this really the first time I believed this story? How many times have I thought happiness was waiting just ahead only to watch it fade once I arrived? Awareness is the key that begins to unlock the trap. The second step is to experiment with presence. Rather than postponing happiness until tomorrow, explore the completeness of now. This does not mean ignoring responsibilities or abandoning ambition. It means realizing that joy is not dependent on the outcome of those ambitions. You can pursue goals while also tasting the strawberry in front of you. You can work hard without believing that peace is waiting only after success arrives. Presence transforms the journey itself into a source of fulfillment. There is a story of a Zen monk who was asked what enlightenment felt like. He replied, "When hungry I eat, when tired I sleep." The student was confused. "Does not everyone do that?" The monk smiled and said, "Not at all. Most people are not really eating when they eat. Their minds are elsewhere. They are not truly sleeping when they sleep. Their minds are racing through tomorrow. Enlightenment is not about doing something extraordinary. It is about being fully present with what is already happening." Imagine applying this teaching in daily life. You are sitting down to dinner. Instead of scrolling through your phone or worrying about tomorrow, you place full attention on the taste of the food, the sound of conversation, the warmth of the moment. Suddenly, the meal is no longer a routine task. It is alive, vibrant, complete. Or, consider a walk outside. Instead of rushing to the destination, you notice the rhythm of your breath, the feel of the ground beneath your feet, the play of light in the trees. In those moments, the chase dissolves. Happiness is no longer something to pursue, it is something to experience. Of course, the mind will resist. It has been trained for years to equate restlessness with progress. At first, sitting still may feel uncomfortable. Thoughts will insist that you should be doing something more important. This is where gentle discipline comes in. Each time the mind drifts into the chase, gently bring it back. Smile at the restlessness, then return to the breath, the taste, the sound, the presence. Slowly the mind learns a new rhythm. Slowly the fog begins to thin. The endless chase for happiness is not a personal flaw. It is a human tendency amplified by culture and technology. But recognizing it is the beginning of freedom. Once you see the treadmill for what it is, you no longer need to run endlessly. You can step off, breathe deeply, and realize that the ground beneath your feet was always enough. The strawberry is sweet, not because the tigers are gone, but because you are here to taste it. The journey of Zen is not about erasing desire, but about transforming our relationship to it. Instead of being enslaved by the endless chase, we learn to hold desire lightly, to see it as a passing cloud rather than a command. In that freedom lies a happiness that no finish line can give, and no loss can take away. The trap of spiritual seeking. When most people first hear that chasing external goals does not bring lasting happiness, they turn their attention inward. They begin to explore spirituality, meditation, yoga, or self-help practices. At first, this shift feels like the answer. If the world of money, recognition, and achievement cannot deliver peace, perhaps the inner world can. This is a powerful step, yet it carries its own hidden danger. The same restless mind that once chased material success can easily transform the search for peace into just another project, another finish line, another chase. The Buddha warned about this when he described the middle way. He had tried the extremes. As a prince, he lived in comfort and pleasure, but found no freedom there. As an ascetic, he starved and punished his body, hoping discipline would reveal the truth, yet that too failed. Only when he abandoned both extremes did he find a path that was neither indulgence nor self-denial. This story is more than history. It is a mirror for modern seekers. Too often we treat meditation like a new career ladder, expecting progress, milestones, and rewards. We measure our worth by how long we can sit, how calm our breath becomes, how many retreats we attend. We compare ourselves to others and secretly wonder who is more advanced. The search for liberation has become another competition. This is what some teachers call spiritual materialism. The forms of practice remain, but the motivation has not changed. Instead of chasing wealth or power, we are now chasing enlightenment, bliss, or awakening. The ego simply changes costumes but continues to run the show. Instead of saying, "I will be happy when I earn this promotion," we say, "I will be free when I can meditate for 2 hours straight, or when I reach a state of perfect stillness." The restless fog has followed us into the temple. Modern culture reinforces this trap. The wellness industry has exploded into a multi-billion-dollar business, selling not only yoga mats and meditation apps, but also the promise of transformation. Advertisements tell us that 10 minutes a day will make us peaceful, that a weekend retreat will change our lives, that buying the right essential oil or singing bowl will finally bring harmony. None of these tools are bad in themselves. A cushion can support the body, a teacher can guide the mind, a retreat can deepen focus. The problem arises when we believe the tools are the destination rather than the means. We treat them as trophies to collect rather than doorways to presence. There is an old Zen story of a monk polishing a tile. A student asked him what he was doing. The monk replied, "I am making a mirror." The student laughed and said, "You cannot make a mirror out of a tile." The monk smiled and said, "Nor can you become enlightened by sitting in meditation with the wrong attitude." The lesson is simple yet profound. Practice itself is not magic. What matters is the intention, the awareness, the letting go. If we practice with the desire to achieve, the desire itself blocks the way. This paradox is one of the most challenging aspects of spiritual life. You must care enough to practice, yet not cling to results. You must sit with discipline, but not chase after states of bliss. The very effort to get rid of desire can itself become another desire. This is why some Zen teachers use koan's paradoxical questions that short-circuit logical thought. When asked how to eliminate desire, a teacher might say, "Your desire to eliminate desire is still desire." When you see this, the mind has nowhere to run. In that moment of seeing something deeper than desire opens. In the modern West, this paradox often collides with our cultural conditioning. We are trained from birth to set goals, measure progress, and achieve results. School reports, performance reviews, even fitness trackers encourage us to quantify our lives. When we approach meditation, we carry the same mindset. How many minutes did I sit today? How many days in a row have I practiced? How calm did I feel? These metrics may encourage discipline, but they can also reinforce the illusion that peace is a prize to win. The danger here is subtle. Someone may practice daily for years and accumulate a sense of pride. They may believe they are more spiritual than others, more advanced, more enlightened. This subtle arrogance can become even harder to dissolve than ordinary desires. At least when you chase money or fame, you can eventually recognize their emptiness. But when you chase enlightenment, you can trick yourself into believing you are beyond illusion. The ego has simply hidden under sacred robes. How do we avoid this trap? The first step is humility. Recognize that practice is not about becoming special, but about becoming ordinary. A Zen master once said, "The true miracle is not to walk on water or fly in the air, but to walk on earth. To eat when hungry, to sleep when tired, to smile when seeing a friend." These simple acts hold the essence of awakening when performed with awareness. Humility reminds us that no amount of spiritual achievement makes us better than others. We are all human, learning to breathe, learning to live, learning to let go. The second step is to shift the focus from results to presence. Instead of asking, "What did I gain from this meditation?" ask, "What did I notice?" Instead of chasing a perfect state, rest in the imperfect moment. If your mind wandered, notice it wandered. If your body ached, notice the ache. If your breath felt shallow, notice the breath. Awareness itself is the fruit of practice. You do not need to force it into something grand. The third step is to integrate practice into daily life. Many people treat meditation as a separate activity, a special time carved out from ordinary existence. While discipline is valuable, the heart of Zen lies in bringing awareness to every moment. Washing dishes, driving a car, speaking with a colleague, all are opportunities for presence. If we reserve awareness only for the cushion, we risk turning meditation into a performance. If we carry awareness into each action, we discover that life itself is the practice. Consider how this might look in a modern context. You are in the middle of a stressful workday. Instead of waiting for your evening meditation session, you pause for a single conscious breath before sending an email. You notice your body as you sit in the chair. You recognize the tension in your shoulders and soften it slightly. In that moment, the chase ends. You are not waiting for future peace. You are tasting it now, even in the midst of busyness. Another example is in relationships. Many people believe they must become fully healed before they can love well. They postpone intimacy until they reach some imagined level of enlightenment. But love is not a reward for self-perfection. It is a practice of presence with another person. When you listen fully, when you speak honestly, when you share silence, you are already embodying the essence of awakening. The trap of spiritual seeking dissolves when we realize that the opportunity for love and awareness is always here. There is a famous Zen saying, "If you meet the Buddha on the road, kill him." This shocking phrase does not mean disrespect. It is a reminder not to cling to any image of enlightenment, not even the most sacred. If you think you have found the perfect teacher or the perfect teaching, be careful. Attachment can sneak in wearing the mask of devotion. True freedom requires letting go of even the idea of freedom. In the West, the trap of spiritual seeking often shows up in the desire for extraordinary experiences. People chase psychedelic visions, mystical states, or dramatic breakthroughs. They want fireworks proof that something profound has happened. Yet many teachers remind us that the deepest awakening is often quiet, even invisible. It may show up not as bliss, but as simple kindness, not as visions, but as patience, not as ecstasy, but as steady compassion. The extraordinary hides inside the ordinary. When you learn to see it, the need for chasing fades. The final and perhaps most important step is compassion. Spiritual practice is not about escaping the world, but about engaging it with a softer heart. The true test of meditation is not how still you can sit, but how you respond when someone cuts you off in traffic, when your child is crying, when your partner is upset. Can you meet these moments with patience and care? Can you offer presence rather than reactivity? Compassion transforms practice from a personal project into a shared gift. It ensures that the fruits of awareness nourish not only you but everyone around you. The trap of spiritual seeking is powerful because it disguises itself as wisdom. It whispers that you are on the right path, that you are progressing, that you are almost there. But the truth is simpler and closer. You are already here. The backpack was never locked. The strawberry is already in your hand. The sound of your breath, the weight of your body, the light in the room, all are complete. Spiritual practice is not a race to somewhere else. It is the art of arriving where you already are. When you understand this, the chase loses its power. You no longer need to measure your progress or compare your journey. You sit because sitting reveals life. You breathe because breathing is life. You love because love is the natural flowering of awareness. And in this ordinary simplicity you discover the extraordinary freedom that seekers have been chasing for centuries. Discovering the fullness already present, after seeing how the fog of incompleteness drives the endless chase, and how even spirituality can turn into another trap, the natural question arises: if peace is not found by running after desires, and not guaranteed by spiritual ambition, then where is it? Zen answers with a simplicity that is both liberating and unsettling. It is here. It is now. The fullness you long for is not hidden in a distant future or locked behind years of practice. It has always been present, waiting quietly beneath the noise of craving and comparison. This truth often feels unbelievable to the restless mind. We are trained to assume that something is missing. We are taught that happiness must be earned, that peace comes only after enough effort, that wholeness is a prize for the worthy. But Zen turns this idea upside down. It insists that the wholeness you seek is already woven into the fabric of your being. You do not have to create it, only to notice it. Think of the common story of someone searching desperately for their glasses, checking every room, every bag, every surface, only to discover they have been resting on their head the entire time. In the same way, we spend our lives searching for completeness in careers, relationships, possessions, or mystical states, when all along completeness has been here as close as breath. The search is not wrong, but it blinds us to what has never been absent. We glimpse this fullness in small, ordinary moments, listening to music and losing track of time, laughing deeply with a friend until nothing else matters, watching rain fall against a window. In those moments, we are not chasing or comparing. We are simply present, and presence itself reveals completeness. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more could be added. The fog lifts, and for a brief moment, we taste the strawberry of now. The challenge is not that fullness is rare, but that it is so ordinary we overlook it. We imagine enlightenment must be dramatic, accompanied by visions or cosmic fireworks. Yet, Zen masters remind us that true awakening is often invisible. It may appear as calm while doing the dishes, or as patience in a tense conversation, or as gratitude during a walk. These moments carry no spectacle, but they embody the very essence of what we are seeking. Why then do we overlook it? One reason is habit. The mind has been conditioned for years to believe in incompleteness. It constantly asks, what next? What more? What if? Even when peace is present, the mind doubts it, questions it, undermines it. Another reason is fear. If wholeness is already here, then much of what we chase loses its justification. Our identities, our ambitions, even our sense of control are tied to the belief that something is missing. Letting go of that belief can feel like stepping into open air. Zen teachers often use the metaphor of waves and water. A wave rises, takes shape, and falls back into the ocean. From the perspective of the wave, life seems precarious and temporary. But from the perspective of water, there was never any separation. The wave was never apart from the sea. In the same way, we see ourselves as incomplete individuals, fragile and separate. But beneath this perception lies the reality that we are already whole, already connected, already complete. Recognizing this does not erase the struggles of life, but it changes how we hold them. Consider a moment of difficulty, perhaps the stress of losing a job, The fog of incompleteness whispers that without employment you are less valuable, less whole, less secure. Yet if you pause and breathe, you may notice that life is still present. Your breath continues, your body remains alive, the world still holds beauty. Wholeness is not lost. Circumstances may be painful, but the ground of being has not vanished. Seeing this allows you to meet the challenge with clarity rather than despair. This is not denial. It is not pretending that loss or pain do not matter. It is remembering that pain and loss do not erase the fullness of life itself. Just as a cloud can cover the sun without extinguishing it, suffering can obscure wholeness without destroying it. The sun is still shining, even if hidden. The work of practice is to trust that truth, to look for the light even when the sky is heavy. Practical examples help illustrate this. Imagine sitting quietly with a cup of tea. The fog might say this is too small, too ordinary to matter. But if you bring awareness to the warmth of the cup, the aroma rising, the taste of the liquid, you may notice a quiet joy. In that moment, nothing is missing. You are not lacking wealth or recognition. You are simply present, and presence is complete. Another example might be walking outside at night. Instead of rushing, you pause to look at the stars. For a moment, the vastness of the universe fills you with wonder. Again, nothing is missing. The fullness is not something you created. It was always there, revealed by your attention. The discovery of fullness also reshapes how we relate to others. When we believe we are incomplete, we approach relationships from a place of neediness, hoping another person will fill the gap. This often leads to disappointment or dependence. But when we recognize our own wholeness, we can love from abundance rather than lack. We no longer demand that others complete us. We simply share the fullness we already feel. This creates relationships rooted in respect and freedom rather than fear and grasping. In a similar way, recognizing fullness transforms ambition. Goals no longer carry the desperate weight of needing to prove our worth. We can still work hard, still create, still dream, but we pursue these activities as expressions of wholeness, not as substitutes for it. A musician plays not to earn completeness, but to share the music already inside. A teacher guides not to become valuable, but because they already value life. This shift may seem subtle, but it changes everything. Neuroscience even offers insight into this truth. Studies on mindfulness show that when people bring attention to the present moment, the brain shifts from a restless state of scanning for threats and rewards into a calmer state of presence. In these moments, stress hormones decrease, the nervous system relaxes, and a sense of well-being arises. This is not magic but biology. When we stop chasing and simply notice, our bodies reveal what Zen has always taught. Peace is already here. The question then is how to live in this awareness more consistently. The first step is to notice moments of fullness when they arise. Instead of dismissing them as trivial, treat them as glimpses of truth. A smile from a stranger, a ray of sunlight through a window, the sound of birds in the morning. Pause and recognize them as expressions of completeness. The more you notice, the more you train your mind to see what has always been present. The second step is gratitude. Gratitude shifts attention from what is missing to what is already here. Each time you acknowledge something simple, like the ability to breathe or the taste of water, you affirm fullness. Gratitude does not ignore challenges but places them in the wider context of abundance. It reminds you that even in hardship, life offers gifts. The third step is practice. Not practice in the sense of chasing progress, but in the sense of returning again and again to presence. Whether through meditation, mindful walking, or conscious breathing, practice trains the mind to let go of its compulsive chase. Each time you return, you reinforce the truth that completeness is here. Ultimately, discovering fullness is not about creating something new, but about remembering what was never lost. The fog of incompleteness may obscure it. The chase may distract from it. Spiritual ambition may distort it. But fullness remains constant and unbroken. Like the ocean beneath the waves, like the sun behind the clouds, like the glasses on your head, it has always been here. The journey of Zen is less about reaching a destination and more about removing the illusions that prevent us from seeing clearly. When those illusions fade, what remains is simple, ordinary, and profoundly enough. A cup of tea, a breath, a smile. Life itself complete in every moment. living as a wave that knows it is water. Once we begin to glimpse the fullness already present in each moment, a deeper realization starts to emerge. We are not separate fragments wandering through life incomplete and isolated. We are expressions of something much larger, like waves rising and falling on the surface of the ocean. Each wave has its shape, its height, its movement, but it is never apart from the water that sustains it. To live as a wave that knows it is water is to recognize that our individual lives, with all their triumphs and struggles, are inseparably woven into the fabric of existence itself. This metaphor is ancient, yet it speaks with clarity to our modern condition. In the West, individualism has been elevated almost to a religion. From childhood, we are told to define ourselves, to stand out, to build a personal brand. We are measured by how unique we are, how different from others, how strong our separate identity appears. While individuality has its strengths, the danger is that we forget our belonging. We come to see ourselves as isolated waves battling against each other for survival, unaware of the ocean that connects us. This illusion deepens loneliness, anxiety, and competition. Zen challenges this illusion directly. It teaches that the self is not a fixed, independent entity, but a process, a flow, a meeting place of countless conditions. Just as a wave is shaped by wind, tide, and depth, our lives are shaped by culture, family, biology, and the natural world. There is no isolated core that stands apart. What we call I is a temporary configuration of conditions constantly shifting and dissolving. To realize this is not to erase individuality, but to place it in its true context. When we live only as waves, unaware of our water nature, we are constantly afraid. Afraid of crashing, afraid of disappearing, afraid of being smaller than others. But when we awaken to our water nature, fear loses its grip. We see that while the form of the wave rises and falls, the substance remains. Death and change are no longer threats to existence, but transformations of form. The ocean continues, and in a real sense, so do we. This perspective has profound implications for how we live day to day. Imagine being caught in an argument. As a wave, you might feel attacked, your identity threatened. You defend fiercely, trying to protect your separate self. But as water, you see that both you and the other person are movements of the same ocean. Their anger is not an alien force, but part of the same vast system of causes and conditions that shape you. This recognition softens the conflict. You can respond with compassion rather than defensiveness, knowing that what hurts them also affects you. The wave and water metaphor also reshapes how we face suffering. When we identify only as a wave, pain feels unbearable, because it seems entirely personal. Why is this happening to me? But when we remember that pain and joy alike are currents in the ocean of existence, we can hold them differently. Suffering is no longer proof of isolation, but part of the shared human experience. In this way, compassion deepens. We realize that our struggles connect us to others, not separate us from them. Science offers surprising support for this insight. Studies in neuroscience show that when people practice empathy, the brain lights up in ways that mirror the experience of the person observed. When you see someone in pain, your nervous system reflects that pain. You are wired to resonate with others, because on a fundamental level, there is no absolute separation. The body knows what Zen has always taught. We are water, not just waves. Living as water also changes how we see success. If we believe we are only waves, we are obsessed with being taller, faster, more impressive than the waves around us. Life becomes a competition, a desperate attempt to prove our worth. But when we know we are water, success is no longer measured against others. One wave's rise does not diminish another, for all are movements of the same sea. This realization invites a spirit of cooperation, humility, and shared joy. When one person flourishes, all are uplifted. A story from Zen captures this beautifully. A student asked a master, "What happens after we die?" The master replied, "How should I know?" The student pressed, "But you are a teacher. Surely you understand life and death." The master answered, "Yes, but I am still alive." What matters is not clinging to theories about what happens when the wave falls, but realizing that the water has never been lost. The point is not to speculate about eternity, but to live fully here and now in harmony with the ocean of being. In modern life, this teaching is revolutionary. We are surrounded by messages that insist we are alone, separate, and incomplete. Advertising thrives on this belief, selling products as bridges to belonging. Nationalism and politics deepen the illusion by drawing lines between us and them. Even personal growth movements sometimes fall into the trap of glorifying the individual self above all else. Against this tide, Zen whispers a radical truth: you are not alone. You never were, you never could be. You are water. What does it look like to live this truth? It begins with small shifts in perception. When you walk into a crowded subway and feel irritation at the press of bodies, you pause and remember these people are not obstacles but fellow waves of the same ocean. Their breath sustains the same air you breathe. Their hearts beat with the same fragility. This awareness transforms irritation into empathy. You move through the crowd with gentleness rather than hostility. In family life, the practice becomes even more intimate. When a child cries through the night, the wave self may feel trapped, exhausted, resentful. But when you remember your water nature, you see the child's need as part of the same shared life that animates you. Compassion arises not from obligation but from recognition of unity. Caring for the child becomes caring for yourself because there is no real separation. This perspective also reshapes how we approach the environment. When we see ourselves as separate waves, nature becomes a resource to exploit. The forest is wood to be cut, the river is water to be diverted, the earth is ground to be mined. But when we recognize ourselves as water inseparable from the ecosystem that sustains us, exploitation becomes self-harm. To poison the river is to poison our own veins. To destroy the forest is to destroy our own lungs. Ecological awareness is not a political stance but a spiritual realization of our true nature. Of course, the wave will always be visible. We still have names, personalities, histories. Zen does not deny individuality but invites us to hold it lightly. You can enjoy being a unique wave without forgetting the water. You can express creativity, pursue goals, and live fully while recognizing that none of these define your essence. They are forms arising and dissolving, beautiful and impermanent, like patterns on the surface of the sea. The challenge lies in remembering. In moments of stress, fear, or ambition, the wave illusion returns strongly. We forget the ocean and fight desperately to preserve our shape. This is why practice matters. Meditation, mindfulness, and reflection are ways of training the mind to see water even when the wave roars. Each time you pause and breathe, each time you open your awareness beyond your narrow self, you strengthen the recognition of unity. Over time, this recognition becomes more stable, less dependent on special conditions. There is a quiet joy in living this way. Imagine walking along the shore and watching the waves rise and fall. None is permanent, none is separate, yet all are beautiful. To live as a wave that knows it is water is to carry this perspective inward. Your joys and sorrows, your beginnings and endings are all movements of the ocean. You do not need to cling or resist. You can rise, crest, and fall with grace, knowing the water is always here. This realization also brings courage. If you are only a wave, death is the end. If you are water, death is transformation. The form may dissolve, but the substance continues. This does not erase grief, but it softens the edge of fear. It reminds us that we are part of something larger than our individual lives, something vast and enduring. In that recognition lies a peace that no external achievement can provide. The modern world desperately needs this perspective. In a time of division, loneliness, and ecological crisis, remembering that we are water offers a path to healing. It does not solve every problem, but it changes how we meet them. With humility, compassion, and a sense of shared belonging, we can respond more wisely. The ocean teaches us that we are not isolated fragments, but threads in the same tapestry, waves in the same sea. To live as a wave that knows it is water is not a mystical escape from reality. It is the most practical way to engage with life. It grounds us in humility, frees us from fear, and opens us to compassion. It allows us to face change with grace, to embrace others with sincerity, and to walk the earth with respect. And perhaps most importantly, it reminds us that the wholeness we seek has never been missing. We are already the ocean, vast and complete. Life as music, not mathematics. When we begin to recognize that we are not isolated waves, but water itself, another shift becomes possible. We start to see life not as a rigid problem to solve, but as a flowing experience to join. Zen often says that life is more like music than mathematics. Mathematics seeks precise answers, fixed solutions, and ultimate certainty. Music, on the other hand, unfolds in rhythm, harmony, and improvisation. It is not about arriving at a final result, but about experiencing the journey of sound in the moment. To live as though life is music is to free ourselves from the obsession with control and certainty, and to enter instead into the rhythm of presence. In modern culture, we often treat life like an equation. We believe that if we plug in the right numbers, education, career, partner, possessions, then the sum will equal happiness. But life refuses to behave like a neat equation. Even when all the variables are in place, peace may remain elusive. Something unexpected arises, and the formula no longer works. We become frustrated because our mathematical model of life cannot account for the messiness of reality. Music offers a different perspective. When you listen to a song, you do not demand that it resolve immediately. You do not ask the first note to contain the entire melody. You allow it to unfold, note by note, measure by measure. Each moment has value in itself, not only as a step toward the end. In fact, if you were only interested in the end of the song, you would miss the entire beauty of the experience. In the same way, life asks us to participate rather than calculate, to listen rather than control, to dance with its rhythm rather than force it into a rigid structure. Zen teachers sometimes describe this with the phrase "just this." It means that the value of life is not hidden in the future or dependent on outcomes. It is here, in this moment, complete in its own way. A breath, a step, a smile, each is a note in the great music of existence. The task is not to rush toward the end, but to hear the music fully as it plays. Consider how this perspective changes daily life. Imagine you are cooking dinner. If you treat the task like a math problem, you may focus only on efficiency. How quickly can I prepare this meal? How accurately can I measure each ingredient? How perfect can I make the result? The experience becomes stressful, mechanical, and narrow. But if you treat it like music, you notice the rhythm of chopping vegetables, the scent rising from the pan, the sound of simmering water. The process itself becomes meaningful. You are no longer racing toward completion, but dwelling in the music of the moment. The same is true of conversations. A mathematical approach reduces dialogue to an exchange of information. I speak, you respond. The point is delivered. But a musical approach hears the cadence of voices, the pauses, the laughter, the silences. It allows room for improvisation, for moments of unexpected depth. In this way, communication becomes less about efficiency and more about connection. One of the greatest difficulties of modern life is our obsession with outcomes. We are taught to measure everything: grades, income, weight, productivity, followers. We reduce life to numbers as though the meaning of existence could be captured in statistics. This obsession robs us of presence. We are so focused on the score that we forget to hear the song. No wonder stress and burnout are so common. We are trying to solve life rather than live it. Music invites another way. It reminds us that imperfection is part of beauty. A jazz musician does not panic when a note surprises them. They weave it into the flow, turning it into improvisation. A singer does not quit when their voice cracks. They carry the moment forward, sometimes with even greater emotion. Life too contains surprises, mistakes, and rough edges. If we treat these as mathematical errors, we grow anxious and self-critical. But if we treat them as musical improvisations, we can adapt with grace. The unexpected becomes part of the rhythm. Zen aesthetics celebrates this principle through the concept of wabi-sabi, the beauty of imperfection and impermanence. A cracked bowl is not discarded but treasured, sometimes repaired with gold in the art of kintsugi. The crack does not ruin the bowl. It becomes part of its story, part of its beauty. Life as music works the same way. Our scars, our mistakes, our flaws are not errors in the equation. They are notes in the melody, shaping its texture and depth. This approach also transforms how we face time. A mathematical view of time divides it into past, present, and future, like points on a line. We spend much of our energy trying to calculate the future or correct the past. But music treats time differently. In music, the present is not a single frozen instant, but a flow, a rhythm that carries past notes into future ones. The song exists only as movement, never as a fixed point. In the same way, life is a flowing continuity. We cannot isolate it, we can only participate in it. Recognizing this eases the anxiety of control. We no longer need to stop time or predict every moment. We can join the rhythm and trust the flow. This does not mean abandoning responsibility. A musician practices diligently learning scales and harmonies, so that when the moment comes, they can improvise freely. In the same way, we prepare, we plan, we study, but we also remain flexible, ready to adapt to what arises. The goal is not to eliminate structure, but to avoid being trapped by it. Structure serves the music. It does not imprison it. One of the simplest yet most profound practices of Zen is zazen, or sitting meditation. At first, it may feel mathematical. You try to hold the right posture, breathe at the right pace, clear the mind of distractions. But as practice deepens, you begin to hear the music of stillness. Thoughts come and go like passing notes. Breath flows like a gentle melody. Awareness expands into a spacious silence that holds everything. Zazen is not about achieving a result, but about joining the rhythm of being. It teaches us to live as though each moment is a note to be heard fully before the next arises. Imagine applying this to relationships. Instead of treating them as equations, if I give this much love, I should receive this much in return. You approach them as music. Some days are soft ballads, some are turbulent symphonies, some are quiet duets. The value is not in calculating fairness, but in participating in the unfolding song. You listen, you respond, you improvise together. This shift transforms relationships from transactions into living art. Life as music also reshapes how we face death. Mathematics treats death as the end of the equation, the final result, the closure of the problem. Music treats death as the last note of a song, not an error but part of the composition. The beauty of a song lies partly in its ending. Without an ending, the melody could not be complete. In the same way, death does not cancel the music of life but gives it shape. Knowing this, we can live more fully, savoring each measure without fear of the final note. When you begin to live life as music, a subtle joy arises. You no longer rush through tasks as though they are obstacles to overcome. You hear the rhythm in walking, the harmony in breathing, the melody in conversation. Even ordinary moments glow with depth. The fog of incompleteness dissolves, not because every problem is solved, but because you realize life was never a problem to solve. It was always a song to join. Zen offers countless small practices to cultivate this awareness. Bowing before a meal, not as ritual, but as rhythm. Drinking tea slowly, not as duty, but as melody. Watching the seasons change, not as statistics, but as symphonies of color and light. These practices are not escapes from life, but ways of living it more deeply. They remind us that the true wealth of existence is not hidden in achievements, but in the music already playing. In our modern world of schedules, deadlines, and data, this lesson is both radical and necessary. We are drowning in mathematics, in numbers and predictions, in measurements and goals. What we need is not another formula, but the courage to listen, to pause, to breathe, to join the rhythm of being. To live as music is to rediscover the joy that no statistic can capture, the peace that no equation can deliver, the beauty that no calculation can contain. Life is unfolding like a melody right now. The question is not how to solve it, but how to hear it. The invitation of Zen is simple yet profound. Put down the calculator, open your ears, and join the song. Inner state as the source of reality. Once we begin to see life as music, rather than mathematics, we start noticing another dimension of experience. The quality of the song depends less on the external notes being played and more on the state of the listener. Two people can sit in the same concert hall and hear the same symphony, but one may be moved to tears while the other feels bored. The difference is not in the music itself, but in the inner state through which it is received. In the same way, our reality is not shaped only by external events, but by the state of our inner world. Zen has long emphasized this principle. The outer world is like a mirror that reflects the mind. If the mind is clouded with fear, anger, or restlessness, the world appears threatening, hostile, or incomplete. If the mind is calm and open, the same world appears vibrant, compassionate, and full of possibility. This does not mean we deny suffering or pretend challenges do not exist. It means we recognize that how we meet those challenges depends profoundly on the state we cultivate inside. Think of two people caught in traffic. The first grips the wheel, curses at every delay, and feels their chest tighten with frustration. The second breathes deeply, listens to the hum of the engine, and uses the pause as a chance to notice the sky. The traffic is identical, yet the realities are completely different. The first lives in a world of irritation. The second lives in a world of presence. The outer circumstance did not change, but the inner state transformed the experience. Modern psychology supports this insight. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches that our thoughts shape our feelings and behaviors more than events themselves. Two people can interpret the same event differently, leading to different emotional outcomes. Neuroscience shows that practices like meditation alter brain patterns, reducing reactivity and increasing resilience. Science confirms what Zen has always taught. By shaping the inner state, we reshape the reality we inhabit. This truth is both empowering and humbling. Empowering because it means we are not helpless victims of circumstance. Humbling because it forces us to recognize how often we project our unrest onto the world. How many times have we blamed others for our discontent when the root lay in our own state of mind? How often have we imagined the world was hostile when it was our own fear coloring perception? The practice, then, is not to manipulate the outer world endlessly, but to attend to the inner. This does not mean withdrawing from life or ignoring injustice. It means realizing that the clarity and compassion we bring to action depend on the state we cultivate within. Without this awareness, even noble causes can be poisoned by anger and fear. With this awareness, even simple acts can radiate profound healing. A simple smile illustrates this truth. When you smile genuinely, people often smile back. The gesture creates a ripple of warmth that shifts the atmosphere of an interaction. What began as an inner state becomes an outer reality. The same is true in larger ways. A leader who cultivates calm and clarity can transform the mood of an entire team. A parent who carries patience can soften the anxiety of a child. The inner state is not private. It radiates outward, shaping the environment around us. In the digital age, this principle becomes even more visible. A single message shared online can spread across the globe, influencing thousands of people. Anger can go viral, fueling division and hostility. But kindness can also go viral, inspiring generosity and hope. Behind each message lies an inner state. The world we create online mirrors the states we cultivate inside. The responsibility is immense. Every thought we choose to nourish, every mood we choose to feed shapes not only our reality, but the collective reality we share. This does not mean we should deny or suppress negative states. Zen is not about forcing ourselves to be cheerful or pretending everything is fine. It is about awareness. When anger arises, we see it clearly, without letting it control us. When fear appears, we acknowledge it without allowing it to dictate our choices. Awareness creates space between the state and the action. In that space lies freedom. Consider the example of conflict. If someone insults you, the immediate inner state may be defensiveness or rage. If you act from that state unconsciously, the conflict escalates. But if you pause, breathe, and notice the anger, you may choose differently. You may respond with firmness, but without hostility. The outer event did not change, but by shifting the inner state, you changed the reality of the interaction. What could have been a battle becomes an opportunity for understanding. Zen practice offers countless tools for cultivating this awareness. Breath meditation anchors attention in the body, calming the storm of thoughts. Walking meditation brings presence into motion, reminding us that each step can be a fresh beginning. Mindful speech encourages us to pause before reacting, to taste our words before releasing them. Each practice trains us to notice and shape the inner state, not by force but by gentle attention. Gratitude is another powerful doorway. When we focus on what is lacking, our inner state becomes restless and the world appears empty. When we focus on what is present, our inner state softens and the world appears abundant. The external circumstances may be the same, but the lens has changed. Gratitude turns ordinary life into extraordinary presence. The ripple effects of inner state extend far beyond personal well-being. Communities and nations are shaped by the collective moods of their people. History shows how fear can give rise to violence, how resentment can fuel conflict, how hope can inspire change. Each of these begins as an inner state magnified outward. To cultivate peace within is not selfish. It is a contribution to the peace of the world. Living with this awareness also shifts how we pursue goals. Instead of believing that success will create happiness, we realize that happiness shapes success. Research shows that people who cultivate positive inner states are more creative, more resilient, and more effective. This does not mean forcing positivity, but developing genuine presence, clarity, and balance. When the inner state is stable, external actions flow with more wisdom and less desperation. The story of Viktor Frankl, a Holocaust survivor and psychiatrist, illustrates this principle with great power. In the horrors of the concentration camps, he realized that while he could not control external events, he could choose his inner attitude. That choice gave him strength to endure and later inspired his work in logotherapy. His life demonstrates that even in the most extreme circumstances, the inner state shapes reality. It is the last freedom, and perhaps the most profound. For daily living, the lesson is simple yet demanding. Pause often to ask, what is the state I am carrying right now? Am I projecting restlessness, anger, or fear into the world? Or am I radiating calm, kindness, and presence? This question is not about self-judgment, but about awareness. It reminds us that we are not passive receivers of reality, but active co-creators. To live with this awareness is to accept both responsibility and possibility. We cannot control every event, but we can shape how we meet each event. We cannot eliminate suffering from the world, but we can respond with compassion rather than despair. We cannot dictate the rhythm of the music, but we can choose how we dance to it. In the end, the inner state is not separate from outer reality. They are two sides of the same flow, like wave and water, like sound and listener. To tend the inner is to transform the outer. To cultivate presence within is to invite harmony without. This is not a mystical escape, but the most practical way of living. When you realize this, life changes. The fog of incompleteness begins to lift. The endless chase slows the trap of spiritual seeking. Dissolves, the fullness of each moment becomes visible. The music of existence becomes audible. And in the heart of it all, you discover that the reality you long for was never waiting elsewhere. It was always unfolding here, shaped by the state you carry, ready to be lived now. We have traveled through many layers of reflection together. We began with the fog of incompleteness, that restless sense that life is never enough. We saw how this fog fuels the endless chase, pushing us from one goal to another, always promising peace but never delivering it. We explored how even spiritual practice can become another trap, another project of becoming when it is driven by ambition rather than presence. Then we discovered that fullness has never been missing. It reveals itself in simple moments when the mind is quiet. When we pause long enough to notice the strawberry in our hand, we learn to live as waves that know they are water, realizing our deep connection with all existence. We saw how life unfolds like music rather than mathematics, an improvisation of presence rather than a problem to solve. And finally, we understood that our inner state does not just color our experience, but shapes the reality we inhabit and share with others. What do these lessons point toward? They invite us to step out of the fog and into clarity. They remind us that peace and completeness are not hidden in distant futures, but present in the very act of living. They challenge us to release the grip of comparison and control, and to rediscover the freedom of being fully here. The invitation of Zen is not to escape the world, but to engage it with awareness, to walk the same roads with lighter steps, to face the same challenges with a steadier heart. The call to action is simple but profound. Begin now. Do not wait for better conditions, for the perfect job, for the right relationship, for the ideal moment. The ideal moment will never arrive because the only real moment is the one unfolding right here. Choose presence now. Taste your food as though it is the first meal you have ever eaten. Listen to a loved one as though their words are music. Pause in the middle of a busy day to feel your breath and notice the sky. These small acts are not trivial. They are the doorway to the freedom you have been seeking. The world does not need more people lost in the chase. It needs people who are awake to the fullness of life, people who can bring compassion into conflict, patience into stress, gratitude into daily routine. When you cultivate presence, you do not just transform your own life, you ripple outward into families, communities, and cultures. The smile you share, the calm you embody, the kindness you practice all create a reality that others can step into. You are not required to wait. You are not required to earn wholeness. You are not required to become someone else before you can rest. The invitation is to remember what has always been true. You are already part of the ocean, already part of the music, already carrying the capacity for peace within you. So set down the backpack of incompleteness. Step off the treadmill of endless chasing. Pause and breathe. Begin with this moment. Let this be the place where you discover that the fullness of life has been here all along, waiting for you to notice and to live it with open eyes and an open heart.